The history of Buddhist heritage is the story of a great quest of mankind, a quest to leave behind the desires and attachments of the world of illusions, a quest to attain the peace which can only be found within. It was the 2nd century BC. In the Western Ghats, near the coast of Maharashtra, one of the greatest chapters in Buddhist art was unfolding. Over a period of about 1,000 years, more than 1,200 caves were hewn out of the heart of the rock. Most of these were Buddhist. While homes and even palaces were being made of ephemeral materials like wood, that which was made in service to the eternal was carved out of everlasting rock. For almost 2,000 years of known ancient Indian history, there was no focus on personalities, even of kings. It was the eternal truths, beyond the passing illusions of Maya or Mithya, which were the subject of art. Hence only sacred spaces were made out of lasting material. The first phase of prolific excavation was from the 2nd century BC till the 3rd century AD. Great Buddhist prayer halls and viharas for the residence of monks were made under the rule of the Satavahanas and the Kshatrapas. Though these kings revered Brahmanical deities, they patronized all religious establishments. Individual sculptures and pillars were donated by merchants, bankers, gardeners, farmers, fishermen, housewives, and others, including many who were Yavanas or Greeks. These cave sanctuaries were made on the caravan routes which came from central India to the ports on the coast of Maharashtra. Perhaps it was the great prosperity on account of flourishing trade which made possible this era of magnificent rock-cut caves. Trade networks, both internal and with the Mediterranean, were expanding fast in this period. The Roman historian Pliny the Elder writes in 77 BC that Roman coffers were being emptied for buying too many fine textiles from India. There are 22 rock-cut caves at Bhaja, facing the valley of the river Indrayani in Pune district. The Chaitya Griha, or prayer hall here, was made in the 2nd century BC. Chaitya means an object of worship. The stupa, deep inside, continues as the focus of devotion. The mortal relics of the Buddha had been enshrined in a number of stupas. For Buddhists, the stupa became the symbol of his passage from the world of illusion and pain to that of eternal bliss. A horseshoe-shaped arch dominates the facade of the cave. The shape was first made in imitation of wooden architecture in the BARABAR caves of the Ajivikas. Soon it was to be a pan-Indian motif in Buddhist, Jaina, and Brahmanical monuments. The scale of the hall is impressive. It is 55 feet by 26 feet and rises to a height of 29 feet. Pillars which run along the walls of the cave provide a circumambulatory passage around the stupa. The pillars lean inwards in imitation of wooden architecture. Above wooden ribs have actually been added to copy the appearance of freestanding buildings. Among the viharas here, cave number 18, which is contemporary to the Grand Chaitya Hall, is remarkable. On the right wall of the veranda are sculptural representations identified as Brahmanical deities. One shows a royal figure driving a chariot through the skies. This may be the earliest surviving depiction of Surya, representing the sun, who vanquishes the demon of darkness. The panel on the right has been identified as the earliest known depiction of Lord Indra, who rides an elephant. Indra is revered in Brahmanical and Buddhist temples till today. In a secluded gorge of spectacular natural beauty, about 50 kilometers northwest of Aurangabad, are the caves of Pitalkhora. Part of the hill face has disintegrated, and the fronts of the caves have been lost. However, what remains shows that caves 3 and 4 here may have been the crowning glory of Buddhist art when they were made in the late 2nd century BC. Paintings of the 6th and 7th centuries AD in the Chaitya Hall Cave 3 show that the cave remained in use for at least 800 years. The conception of the entrance of Cave 4 is grand. It is as if the weight of the cave rests on the backs of life-sized elephants which have been made in the plinth. This concept continued in Indic monuments through the ancient and medieval periods. Above the entrance was made Lakshmi, embodying abundance. She is depicted often on the railings and gateways of the contemporaneous stupas at BHARHUT and SANCHI. Gaja Lakshmi, where she is lustrated by elephants, is one of the earliest formalized deities in Indic art and is seen in the monuments of all faiths. At Bedsa, on the south face of the range of hills which have the Bhaja Caves, is another magnificent site of excavations. The Grand Chaitya Griha is partly hidden from the profane world outside by a large section of the rock which has been left uncut. In the ancient tradition, that which is important was always kept away from the glare of common sight. We have to make an effort to gain the joy and peace to be found inside. The magnificent Chaitya Griha was made in the 1st century AD. On the pillar capitals we see animals with riders, as is seen in the contemporaneous Sanchi stupa gateways in central India. It is a vision in which men, women and animals are in harmony with each other and the world around. The figures are self-assured. The interior of the cave, dimly lit by the jali window in the front, is simple. Leaving behind the profusion of images and sculptures, the heart of the mountain contains the stupa. A small group of caves was excavated in the 1st century BC, overlooking the stream of Ulhas at Kondavane near Karjat. Owing to the remoteness of the site, it seldom receives the attention which it deserves. Despite its ruined state, the magnificent facade of the Chaitya Griha exhilarates the visitor. The figures made here are delicately modelled and are graceful. There is a sense of natural ease in the artistic depictions of these times. The men and women express emotions with freedom and warmth, not often seen in later representations. On a high hill opposite the range which has the caves of Bhaja, a grand Chaitya Griha and Viharas were created in the 1st to 2nd centuries AD at Karle. Here is the largest of all Chaitya Grihas to be carved out of the living rock. One of its inscriptions proclaims that it is the most excellent rock mansion in all of India. Another inscription records the gift of the Brahmanical devotee Ushvadatta, son-in-law of King Nahapana. He donated the revenue of a village to support the monks at Karle. One must remember that these magnificent Chaitya Grihas are not architecture really, but sculpture on an epic scale. One can imagine how vast the task must have been to create such rock-cut shrines. Great care and planning would have been required at every stage of the enterprise. The cutting of the rock began from top to bottom, creating the spaces and leaving stone for pillars to be shaped later. Even as the stone was hewn to create the structures, the finishing of the walls and the carving of detailed sculpture was taken up. As at Bedsa, the facade of the cave is mainly hidden from the mundane world by a rock-cut screen. A recent shrine today further blocks the view. On the side walls of the veranda are made large elephants. They appear to effortlessly support the many storied structures carved above them. The facade has on it 6 couples, larger than life and filled with robust vitality. These are the yakshas and yakshis who embody abundance and fertility of nature, the forces that ensure the continuity of life. They were seen individually in the gateways of the stupas of BARHUT and SANCHI. Here they have come together as mithunas, or loving couples. Their closeness to each other in natural affection symbolizes the completeness of the world, of the harmony of the natural order. The figures do not attempt to faithfully copy the human body. They are idealized forms presenting the symbolic essence of human life at its most vital. They graphically display the quality of prana, or inner breath, of Indian art. The Grand Hall is 124 feet by 46 feet and rises to a height of 45 feet. There are 37 pillars which run the length of the walls and around the stupa. 30 pillars rise out of the Purna Ghatas, or vases of plenty. The capitals have seated animals, carrying human figures, usually a couple and sometimes 2 women. They're seated in a friendly embrace and display a rare warmth. Here are people as they were meant to be, uninhibited, easy, and joyous. Inscriptions record the names of numerous individual donors who paid for the carving of various parts of the cave and its pillars. These include Greeks. Worship continued at the site for at least 400 years, and there are also later sculptures of the Vakataka period on the facade. There are many small rock-cut caves on the 4 hills close to Junnar in Pune district. These were excavated from the 1st century BC to the 3rd century AD. There are several viharas here, of which the largest is on Suleiman Hill. To the vihara's left is a Chaitya Griha with an inscription of the 2nd century AD. It was the gift of a resident of Kalyana. Within the Borivali National Park in Mumbai is the cave site of Kanheri. This site provides a view of developments in Buddhist art for 1,000 years from the 1st century AD onwards. The caves at Kanheri present the last expressions of the early rock-cut tradition of Western India. Simultaneously, this site heralds developments in iconography of the Buddhist art of the later period. The Chaitya Griha Cave 3 was excavated in the reign of King Satakarni in the 2nd century AD. It has a courtyard with a rock-cut fence around it. Like at Karle, it has 2 pillars in front. One pillar has a representation of the Buddha, the earliest one in Western India. The style of the figures here has similarities with the contemporaneous sculpture of the Mathura region of North India. The men and the women have a sense of the breath and the movement of life. They display individual postures and have gentle expressions. Colossal Buddhas, who are later additions to the Chaityas, are of the 5th century. Later caves at this site present the pantheon of deities of the subsequent period of Buddhism. About 100 kilometers from Aurangabad, in a horseshoe-shaped gorge of the Waghora River, are 31 rock-cut caves at the magnificent site of Ajanta. The caves were excavated in 2 phases, one around the 2nd century BC and the second around the 5th and 6th centuries AD. Cave 10 is the earliest Chaitya Griha here and was made in the 2nd century BC. The murals here are thrilling to see, as they are the earliest surviving paintings of the historic period in India. These murals are known to be the fountainhead of all the classic paintings of Asia. There are also paintings in this cave which were made about 800 years later. Cave 9 is a Chaitya Griha of the 1st century. The facade has figures of the Buddha, which were added in the later period. The Shunga and Satvahana periods were an era of the prolific making of monuments. Here were formulated the themes and traditions of art which continued in later centuries. The railings of stupas and the exteriors of caves presented images of the world as seen around us. Deep within the heart of the mountain, we were to contemplate that which was eternal, that which was within. The stupa was simplicity itself. In the silence of the interior, it was a symbolic representation of the escape from the illusions of the material world.